Good evening, everyone. I would like to ask you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, good evening and welcome to the Meet the Candidates Night. Okay. Yes, welcome to Meet the Candidates Night. My name is Keith Hunter and I will be your moderator this evening. I'm joined by Mike Bliss, who will be our timekeeper, and as well Becky Pearson, that will just keep me on track. Okay, so as Mike mentioned, the event is being streamed live on Facebook Live at the Acquisitions Marketing page. We'd like to thank Acquisition Marketing for providing your service to the community here at no charge. Thank you very much, Billy. We'd also like to thank E-Rock for forever providing us with audio and helping us at every event we do. This evening, we would like to welcome and say thanks to County Legislator Mike Anastagnakis. Thank you for coming, Mike. Here he is. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes. Okay. So this event is brought to you by the Walden Community Council, and they've just come off a tremendously successful Walden Harvest Fest. That was really a fun day. We owe them gratitude for their tireless efforts to do nice things for all of us. This evening being an example of their commitment to our community. So thank you, Walden Community Council, very much. Thank you. Well, what a wonderful opportunity we have this evening to hear directly from the people who seek to lead our town government. We are fortunate to have such a diverse field of candidates and so much positive energy and intention. But good intention alone does not get the job done. So we are each faced with the responsibility and privilege to vote. We sincerely hope this evening proves useful and makes your vote a more informed one. We do ask for two favors. One, if everyone would please mute your cell phones. And two, please refrain from making any comment or reaction that would disrupt or distract the candidates or our audience trying to hear the candidates. Please give all the candidates the respect that you would hope to get if you yourself were speaking. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot tonight, so let's keep it classy. All right, let's lay out our game plan for the evening, and we will get right into it. This evening's format is being presented to allow each candidate the opportunity to tell the community about themselves, discuss election platforms, and answer some questions regarding concerns of the town residents. This format is meant to be nonpartisan in process and does not endorse any individual candidate. It is meant to be informative and positive while allowing the candidates the opportunity to be heard. In the background, each candidate was mailed a personal invitation to attend this evening's function and verbally responded. Our guidelines: each candidate will have and be allowed up to 3 minutes to present their opening remarks. Upon completion of the opening remarks, the Walden Community Council will formally present each question to the candidates. After each question, the candidates will have up to 2 minutes to respond. There will be a moderator to ensure that the event proceeds at a good pace and that all candidates receive the time and attention they deserve. Due to the number of candidates this year, the time periods will be strictly adhered to, and the order of the candidates' response will be varied. A total of 3 questions will be asked to the candidates for supervisor and 2 questions to the candidates running for town council, and 1 question to the judge candidates and the superintendent of highways. Candidates were allowed to review the questions a few minutes prior to tonight's program. After the first round of questions, a brief intermission will be given so individuals from the public can submit questions on the paper provided. These questions should be directed at all candidates and will be reviewed by the Walden Community Council during the break to ensure that the questions have not already been asked of the candidates and that the questions are fair and not of a personal nature. In the event there are a large number of questions submitted, a few will be randomly selected to be asked. Before the end of the event, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make their closing remarks. The candidates are encouraged to remain afterward to talk to constituents in small groups. Okay. Okay. All right, so you do see we have a limited number of microphones. They are cordless, and we ask that if you could slide them back and forth as needed. And so first, we are going to start with allowing the candidates 3 minutes to introduce themselves. And I'm not going to introduce you. I would ask that you please introduce yourself and take 3 minutes to describe yourself and your intentions with your campaign. We will start with Supervisor Winchell. You now have 3 minutes.
Okay, how's that better?
Rod, can you slide it in towards you a little? Or?
Sure. How's that?
And if you prefer standing, you may,
Okay.
if you'd rather sit.
Good evening, I'm Rod Winchell. I'm the current supervisor of Town of Montgomery. First thing I'd like to do is thank the Walden Community Council for organizing tonight's gathering, and Maybrook and the staff for hosting this event. This is my second time doing this, and it was a wonderful experience last time. I'm 54 years old. I was born 1965 here locally. I'm the 4th generation Winchell and still hard of hearing. My father is Al Winchell. My mother was Barbara Mary Elizabeth Carey Winchell. She was off the boat from Ireland, Belfast. She was a Valley Central teacher. So as I get to know a lot of teachers as I grew up here. When I grew up here, it was a great area to live in. We didn't have Route 84. It didn't exist yet. I watched it being built. We didn't have the buffer zone in Stewart. I watched my friends' family and farms being seized. We also didn't have a lot of traffic lights. We had very few, except for 17K 300, 17K 208, and 17K 302. That was it. You could drive a long way without hitting a traffic light. Conjunction Turnpike went to the ferry in the bottom of Broadway. I went to East Coldenham Elementary in the 1970s. Colden House still had a roof on it. I witnessed closings of DuPont, Southers, Ford Mawa, and the Maybrook Rail Yard. I witnessed the opening of Yellow Freight, Quickway Metals, Stewart International Airport, and Interstate 84 and Stonecastle Road. I went to Valley Central Junior High, 1977 to 79, and Valley Central High School. I played football, track, wrestling, cross country. We love sports, hunting, fishing. We had golf clubs. We have many things. I had a lot of influential people in Valley Central. Mr. Bond, Mr. Fury, Ralph Delareed was one of the custodians, great, taught me how to weld. Ray McPhillips. Industrial arts and trades I really loved. I graduated in 1983 with a Regents diploma. History was one of my favorite. I got the Bullis Award for social studies my senior year. I orchestrated one of the first chainsaw competitions in the middle of the parking lot at Valley Central. Probably never done ever again. But we did it in front of the cafeteria in the middle of the day. And it was quite a scene. I also witnessed my primary job through high school. We did farming. We had a lot of construction. My primary job was manufacturing. I worked for Verl International for 16 years old. I worked there 3 years managing a second shift. I witnessed Newburgh, Beacon Bridge, Hamel-Fish III, malls, Orange Plaza, Newburgh Mall, Stewart Airport, with their 11,817 feet runway. I ran hostages coming in, homecoming from my backyard. We could see it land. the opening of Neelytown Road, and the new truck stops of America. In 1983, I left my full-time job and joined the United States Air Force. I became a combat rescue airman, 37 ARS.
That's time, Rod.
Okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Winsel. Former Mayor Marr, you now have 3 minutes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you to the Walden Community Council for hosting us. My name is Brian Marr, and I started in government when I was 23 years old. But before that, what really helped get me started in terms of wanting to help people and in terms of providing services to our community, I came from an amazing family. My mother and father had 5 kids. I was the youngest of the 5. And every day growing up, I was a victim of this generation that their parents tell them you can do anything. And I believed them. They said with enough work, you could put your mind to it and you can accomplish anything. And that was true all throughout high school, and I graduated Valley Central. And in college, when I got bit by this political bug at a very young age, when I was 21, I decided to delve right into it. I got an internship in Washington, D.C. I learned the trade. I learned about campaigning. And when I came home, when I was 23 years old, back in 2009, I saw a local article in the paper about Walden's re-election for mayor. There was already 2 candidates in the race, Mayor Becky Pearson and a trustee, Roy Weinkoop, who had been on the board for 14 years. It was a contested 3-way race, and at the end of the day, what won it for me was me knocking on every single door. I knocked on every door and I said, listen, my experiences are not all-encompassing. I'm going to get things wrong. What you can definitely guarantee from me is that I will tell the truth. I will be accessible. If you call me, I will pick up the phone and call you back. And if I am wrong, I will not dig myself into a deeper hole. I will ask for help, we'll get it right, and we'll do it together working as a team. After my 3rd term, with some really amazing help from a team in Walden of some unbelievable workers as well as board members working together harmoniously, we were able to update our comprehensive plan. One of the first things we did was request an audit of the New York State Comptroller, where we learned a lot about our finances, what we should be doing better. We made those improvements, and we made some amazing infrastructure improvements. And at the end of the day, one of the things I'm most proud of was the constituent services, was listening to people, hearing their concerns, then taking action. Founding Walden's Youth Employment Program, partnering local 14 to 18-year-old kids with local businesses was something that I was so proud of. And one thing that's amazing is looking back on it, now that I'm no longer mayor, seeing that it still exists and it's still thriving and growing. And that's something I'm very proud of, to leave my community better than how I found it. So I didn't run for a 4th term as mayor because Senator Bill Larkin called me. And over the last 6 years, I learned so much from this great man. He didn't see party, he saw people. I got to meet municipal officials, supervisors, mayors from all over the Hudson Valley, and I learned a lot about how to create revenue, what problems they were facing. And I have all of this knowledge and all of this energy and all these ideas and the temperament that I believe we need to serve our town in this very important time, and I'd really like to apply it. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'll be asking for your vote. Thanks.
Time.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Mayor Leahy, you now have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dennis Leahy. I've been elected official for the Village of Maybrook for the past 17 years, and I've served my community as mayor for the past 11 years. When I first took office in 2008 as mayor of the Village of Maybrook, I was faced with a neglected infrastructure and a village with no direction. The village board and I built a new senior center, a new pavilion, new government center. We fixed up our parks to make them more welcoming. We enhanced our family events, built a new sewer treatment plant, new sidewalks, relined sewer lines, and the list goes on. During this time, we endured the worst recession in many of our lifetimes. We lost our Maybrook Elementary School, but we kept moving forward. In 11 budgets as mayor, a home assessed at $150,000 has received a tax increase of $825, which is an average of $75 a year. That's a 4% average per year. We have our B2 zone, which is our Main Street business area, and is now shovel-ready. We did this in-house for $26,000. We have a comprehensive plan, and we have an updated zoning to meet the needs of the village. Most recently, we removed junkyards from our I3 zone. In order to welcome economic development, the infrastructure must be up to date. Simply put, you can't build your house without a good foundation. During my 11 years as mayor, the town of Montgomery was stagnant, and as a result, we faced with neglected infrastructure and no direction. We went to extremes of not welcoming business to welcoming everyone. We have a Medline project, which is a 1.3 million square foot building on a parcel of land near the village of Montgomery. People are upset, and rightfully so. Our town board failed the residents with a 30-year outdated comprehensive plan. If elected, I will move forward on updating the comprehensive plan, look extensively at the zoning, advocate smart growth, and if need be, explore options of a moratorium with the town board. Medline Industries purchased the property on Route 416 for $17 million and had every intention of building their warehouse in the town of Montgomery. Medline filed an application with the town of Montgomery IDA and later rescinded the application after pressure from the town residents and Senator James Skoufis. The town IDA was prepared to offer a pilot agreement to a business who was already committed to building in the town. Pilot agreements fall on the backs of taxpayers. If elected, I will go over the Montgomery IDA with a fine-tooth comb to make sure it abides by its purpose, which is to promote, encourage, and develop job opportunities in our town, and not just trucking. I want to thank the Walden Community Council for sponsoring tonight's event, the residents who came out this evening, and I hope to earn your vote to be your next town supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. We will now allow the council candidates 3 minutes each to tell us something about themselves. Candidate Hoyt, you now have 3 minutes. We'll start over with the time.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
We'll start the timing now. Candidate Hoyt, thank you.
Good evening. I am Mark Hoyt, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am a Valley Central grad, 1980, and I'm also a Cornell University graduate, 1984, where I received a degree in animal science and ag finance. I have been married to my wife, Katie, for 23 years, and my daughter, Olivia, is now in college. As a self-employed farmer for the last 34 years, cultivating over 400 acres of land of crops and raising cattle, I know the realities of running a business on tight margins. In addition to serving on the town board, my other civic services include serving on the Valley Central School Board and holding the office of Vice President, 6 years on the Board of Directors of Orange County Farm Bureau and serving as Vice President, 6 years as an elected member to the Orange County USDA Farm Service Agency, serving as Vice Chair and Chairman. I was also on the Board of Directors of Downstate Milk Producers, a 3-year member of the Town of Montgomery Planning Board. I believe that over the years I have learned that communication is key, and that when you make a mistake, own up to it, learn from it, and move on, and use the experience to help you in the future. I've been heavily involved in the budget process since I've been on the town board, and there's not a budget season that goes by where I don't learn more. I believe whether it is in my business or as a board member, if a week goes by and you don't learn something, you're not paying attention, which will make you ask better and more in-depth questions and learn the avenues to seek the answers. The Association of Towns has been a great resource that I have used and learned from, and also dealing with our town consultants. And I'm in full support of moving forward with the comp plan. The town board put out RFPs, and I think we have some good candidates, and I think we should just move forward and get going on that. And I also believe that we should be working on our Parks and Recreation Department to get that straightened out, and also we have to address the infrastructure of our buildings and town property. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. Candidate Cockburn, you will now have 3 minutes, starting now.
Hi, thank you for having this tonight. I would like to say that I believe in approaching life with a mindfulness of others, a mindfulness of the environment, the past, the present, and the future. And I firmly believe that as an individual and as a community together, we should never stop trying to be better than we already are. And part of being the best is to never stop trying. I am not from Montgomery. My father told me, I just said it to Ron and I figured I'd add it in. He told me when I was in high school, he wasn't sending me to college because I'd be looking for a husband on his money. So I went to New York City with no skills, and I spent 22 years there working. I did a ton of different types of work. I traveled to Europe. I worked modeling in Europe, and I realized when I was in the Swiss Alps that I had a job that I didn't have to speak English to do. And I thought, this is a mistake. So when I came back, I started attending government-offered testing programs and found that I had a very strong science and mathematical background. I worked my way through engineering school. I got an environmental engineering degree from the Stevens Institute of Technology. It was a 5-year combined degree program. And while I did that, all those years I took a minor in government, not political science, government, international government, third world governments, and US government. It's a big difference between that and political science. And I learned that it's easily to properly work in government, and it works if you work it, you just follow the rules. It's like a driving test. You get the test, you follow the permit, and then you follow the rules. I believe that it's imperative to pay attention to all the updates and to constantly adjust accordingly. A government must be flexible with the times. Case in point, the town of Montgomery, since I left, for those that don't know, I was supervisor 2 terms. We are still without the comptroller position. That's not separation of duties, and that's a long time without separation of duties. I'm orderly, and I made sure I had an education before I moved anywhere else in the world. And I visited the tri-state area to find a home for myself by myself. I chose Montgomery. Montgomery was and is real. It's unaffected and it's authentic. And what's really authentic about Montgomery is the people. I really appreciate that there's not a lot of affected attitudes.
Time,
You'd be
Sue.
surprised what it's like elsewhere.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Feller, you will now have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to also echo everybody. Thank you very much for Walden Community Council for letting us speak to you. And thanks for the great turnout. My name is Ron Feller. I was born in Long Island, but I moved up to Washingtonville in 1956. I went to elementary and high school in Orange County in Washingtonville. I was the first fellow to go to college. I went to Villanova University, spent 4 years there, played a lot of sports, but ultimately graduated and joined the Air Force. I spent 4 years in the Air Force. I'm a combat veteran. I married in the service with my wife. We had 2 children, 2 Air Force babies, $9 each. You can't beat that. And we had 4 beautiful children, and we have 8 grandchildren. I should be given extra time because I got a lot of extra years on these people. Anyway, my wife is a retired Valley Central speech pathologist, paraprofessional, and she's still subbing. I spent 30 years in Con Edison after graduating from Villanova, and while I was at Con Edison, I got my master's degree in business at Marist College. I mastered it in MBA, and my main major was organizational structure, which in today's, I didn't know then, 30 years later, organizational structure is really good to come in handy because we need some restructuring. I have 30 years in Con Ed. I retired after I lost my daughter, and I started building some homes. I spent 10 years building homes, and then I joined the Village of Montgomery as a town council person for 4 years. I gave up my business. I was building single-family houses. During that 10-year period, I coached Little League baseball in the Village of Montgomery. I was on the board of directors there. I am currently still a coach with my grandson. I coached CYO basketball for 15 years. It's in my blood. I love it. Parks and Rec is my thing, really. And my grandkids are my thing. After spending 4 years as a town councilman, I I took a couple of years off and tried to rehab and redevelop the Parks and Rec program. During that 2-year period, we fixed the beaches, brought them up to code. We built dugouts, we built the Burnett Pavilion, and we also did a lot of fence work around the fields, which that's my passion. I'd like to develop the Parks and Rec program when elected, if elected, and keep on progressing for the young kids and for seniors. I see a lot of seniors here. I'm a senior. The villages have senior halls. There is senior programs. The town has no senior programs per se. We could combine them and Parks and Rec, and we don't have a program. We can get some
Time, Ron. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Brown, you will now have 3 minutes. Is it on? No. Okay, begin.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Brown. As a 5th generation on our historic family farm, I am proud to say that I am a farmer. As farmers, we often have to deal with obstacles out of our control, such as disease, drought, barn fires, and low prices at auctions. But one thing that we cannot deal with is permanent damage on our farm due to bad decisions. Over the lifetime of our farm's history, I would bet none of the previous generations would ever imagine the struggles of today. Constantly, we are working with excess stormwater from our industrial neighbors that discharges into our meadow, and backup beepers from a number of industries, or sometimes we could almost bid on the cars on the auction block of insurance auto auctions. What we cannot work with was the junkyard that was once proposed to be installed next to our farm, or the wastewater discharge into the Tinbrook from Project Sailfish, or the increased traffic that is occurring from these developments. This town needs a plan. But more importantly, we need to develop a plan together. As a board member of New York Farm Bureau and chair of the Young Farmers and Ranchers program, I strongly believe in the grassroots level. It is through community involvement that we can work together on updating the comprehensive plan and zoning to form a plan for the future. In my work of running a state-level committee, I know the importance of listening to each and every person and working together to find common goals. I care deeply about our community as it is our heritage. I understand that it's not only about farming, but about homes and jobs, existing businesses, sometimes multi-generational, and dreams of current and new residents. I desire to build on positive changes. It is essential to develop a new comprehensive plan. Additionally, we can update the consumer mains and wastewater treatment plant in efforts to attract new businesses in the right locations. In working with the highway department, which is near and dear to me, as my father, whom I admire for his hard work and dedication, was a head mechanic in the town of Wawayanda before he retired, I understand that we need to work on a new highway garage to eliminate the daylight that is shown through one of the main I-beams, or even the basics of working bathrooms in town hall, or just a few of the upgrades that need to be done to move the town forward. In reviewing the budget, I believe there are areas we need to improve on, while other areas we can cut. Oftentimes, it takes a fresh look of new eyes on things to make positive changes for the future. I believe in my work at Orange County Soil and Water, coupled with my volunteer work at the Town of Montgomery CAC, shows my dedication towards preserving our natural resources. My leadership-oriented participation in Rising Star Award demonstrates that I can work with various areas in the county and other departments to utilize county resources to accomplish our goal together. That was good. I only had one more sentence.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Warrington? 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Dwight Warrington Jr., and I would also like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I moved to Montgomery in the 5th grade. I graduated from Valley Central and have been a resident in town here for more than 45 years. My wife and I own our home in our town here. We have raised our 3 children and now look forward to enjoying our 3 grandchildren. We have benefited from the beauty and the rural settings which our township enjoys, but most important, the character of the people of our town. people from our local churches, clubs, groups, programs which promote important values and provide support in our community here. And now I believe it's time for me to step forward and serve the town. I'm not a politician, nor am I seeking a career. I feel at this point in my life I have the knowledge and time to devote to this important position. I have founded and successfully run 3 different corporations simultaneously for a period of time. I've built hundreds of buildings and employed several hundred people over the last 30 years. I will promote responsible fiscal decision-making while working to ensure that the local government has a positive effect on our quality of life and not be intrusive to the residents of Montgomery. One of my goals would be to see an improvement in the maintenance and the preservation of our town assets while promoting responsible, common sense, efficient, limited government. A second goal would be long-term planning. I understand the challenges that the residents and business owners of Montgomery face. I've seen Montgomery grow and change. I've experienced economic hardship and economic success. I would ultimately like to see Montgomery be a place in which our children can find success and proudly call home, their home. I would ensure that all residents have a voice. I would make decisions that are in the best interest of the town, its 3 villages, and all of its residents. I believe the town board, which consists of the supervisor and the 4 council members, have a power as a majority of the board acts as a body. The town board as a group is the executive head of the town and must function as a body. There's no true executive in the town government like the mayor of a city or village. Thus, an individual board member or town supervisor may not unilaterally act on behalf of the town board, and each town board member has the same authority as any other board member.
Time, Dwight.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. Candidate Keenan, 3 minutes.
Thank you to the Walden Community Council for hosting this event and all those in attendance, and thank you to my wife who has to put up with me all the time. I am not a career politician. I do not belong to a political party. I've been a registered independent, now called blank, since 1976. I thank the 548 residents who signed my independent thumbs up party petition, and I am honored to have received the Conservative Party endorsement. I believe my values of honesty, integrity, and commitment will guide me to be an effective councilman. I was the first chairman of the original Town Ethics Board, and now I serve as the chairman of the new Ethics Board. I'm chairman of the Fire Board for the Coldham Fire District, and I've been a volunteer firefighter for 45 years. I'm retired military with over 32 years of active duty service to the Air Force and the Air National Guard. I've interacted with business and community leaders, civic and military organizations. I have experienced, researched, prepared, and briefed reports to general officers, local, state, and nationally elected officials on programs and issues affecting our military personnel. I have amassed a lifetime of skills dedicated to serving others. I'm an independent thinker, a self-motivator, and a doer. I believe in open and honest government and fiscal responsibility. I believe the town must be safety and health conscious for all our residents and employees, and I believe in balanced economic growth. We must not abandon our history, families, and our current businesses. We need to safeguard that progress does not negatively impact our watershed and aquifers. I also believe we should not become the warehouse capital for Orange County. When appropriate, I believe it is okay to say no to spot zoning changes and to exceptions of use requests. We should encourage smart business growth while being considerate of our neighbors and the environment. We need smart economic growth so our ratables go up and our property taxes do not. And it's not just about warehouses. There are many quality of life issues that affect our town. We have a drug epidemic which is not new. Many of us have personally witnessed and suffered the pain and result of addiction. No kid ever wanted to grow up and become a heroin addict. Our volunteer fire services are faced with personnel shortages. Our ambulance corps also has a volunteer shortage, but even greater than that, They're trying to remain financially stable. When somebody calls 911, they want to know that help is on the way. Artificial intelligence cannot maintain our roads. We need the right number of people to plow snow, repair the roads, fix the drainage, and tend to our town highways. There are many other issues as well. Some of us develop a passion to champion a cause. The town board must be able to deal with all issues. State law permits the town to have open work sessions to interact with the public. I want to know what's on your mind. I want Montgomery to remain a place you want to call home.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. This concludes the Town Council candidate introductions. We will now hear from the Town Justice candidates. Candidate Mitchell, can you get a microphone there?
Press the button. Yeah, now try it. Press the button. Oh, no. Different one.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity given to us by the Walden Community Council. My name is Linda Mitchell, and I'm running for town judge in the town of Montgomery. In a few short days, you will all go to the polls and vote. One of the candidates you will vote for is town judge. What qualities will you want in the person that you elect to be your town justice? Socrates contemplated this question. He made a list of 4 qualities that a good judge should have. A good judge should be able to hear courteously, answer wisely, consider soberly, and decide impartially. I submit to you that I have all of these qualities, and I can well serve you as the town judge. I've been an attorney for 30 years. Most of my career was spent as a dedicated civil servant. I was a prosecutor, assistant district attorney for 24 years, and a probation officer for over 6 years. I spent many, many hours listening courteously, deciding, studying, reading, formulating an idea of how the facts and circumstances came into play, and preparing to go to court to argue to the court how these facts could be applied so that justice could be served. I have done this all of my life. As a prosecutor, I had extensive experience conducting trial work, both felony and misdemeanor trial work. And many times I went to the court and made a motion for charges to be reduced, dismissed, or have some other disposition, like an alternative sentencing imposed, because that is what justice required. I have worked extensively with both victims and witnesses in civil and criminal cases, and people in all walks of life. As a prosecutor, I worked extensively with the alternative sentencing programs, particularly drug court. I was on the team that developed the drug courts in the city of Newburgh and the city of Middletown. And I worked not only with the team members, but with the particular defendants involved in those programs. And I am very compassionate about those programs working successfully. I'm a lifetime town resident, thoroughly invested in the idea of the court being a place where everyone who enters the portals can feel comfortable that they will be heard fairly and justly, and that justice will be served in their case. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Mitchell. Candidate Gorse, you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fred Gorse. I'm running for re-election as Town of Montgomery Town Justice. I have 24 years of judicial experience and 24 years of judicial training through the unified court system. With this experience and training, I'm asking you to allow me to continue to serve you as town justice. I'm licensed to practice law in the state of New York and also in the federal district courts in New York. And I'm proud to say the United States Supreme Court. I've dedicated my life to the law with fair and impartial justice. I've taught law taught judges the jury trial practice and procedure. I was an adjunct instructor of law at Orange County Community College. I was a judge in the Orange County mock trial tournament for high school students, and I received a commendation from Orange County for doing so. I am a public servant. I'm here to serve you. I respectfully explain the court procedure to all persons who come before the court. I'm a team player with my clerks and court officers to process cases respectfully and efficiently under our wonderful Constitution. I stay abreast of precedent cases, new statutes like the new landlord and tenant law revisions, and new administrative procedures. One new innovation is the opioid court. Upon consent, in certain cases, these cases are now separated from our regular court calendars, and people are sentenced to rehabilitation and treatment and not jail in the right case. We try to help people, hopefully to break the awful cycle of drug addiction, and are here to try to help them do that with this new section I'm very enthused about. I've obtained many grants from New York State, saving taxpayers money for computers, printers, and other court equipment. In closing, I'm proud to read part of a letter I received from a lady who attended my court. This letter is not about you. This letter is pertaining to you, I'm sorry. I would just like to comment to you on how impressed I was and how well you run your courtroom. Many judges in the Hudson Valley should come and sit in your courtroom for one night, and they will learn a very valuable lesson. Thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Candidate Gorse. We will now hear from the sole candidate running for Superintendent of Highways. Candidate Mears.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Mears. I'm a candidate for Highway Superintendent. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I'm also a lifelong resident of the Village of Montgomery. I'm a Valley Central graduate. I've been married to my wife, Heather, for 10 years. We are homeowners in the Village of Montgomery for 10 years now as well. We have 2 kids, boy and girl twins, 6 years old. I am currently employed by the Town of Montgomery Highway Department. I'm in my 13th year of employment here, and I hold the position as Deputy Highway Superintendent. For those that might not be familiar what our department does and what it entails, we maintain almost 140 lane miles of road, town roads, which includes road mowing, tree work, cleaning ditches, installing drainage, snow plowing, just to name a few. And we also take care of all of our parks. Over my 13 years of employment, I can say I've ran all the equipment, done every job, and learned the ins and outs of what we do for the day. I will be a working highway superintendent and will be available 24 hours a day. I can say that we have a great group of employees at the Town of Montgomery who take pride in our jobs, and we love what we do. I have met with our county counterparts in the DPW and talked about many different things, shared services, piggybacking grants, just to name a few. We already have a great working relationship with all of our surrounding towns and our 3 villages, and I love to keep it that way. As highway superintendent, one of my biggest goals I'd like to implement is a 5-year road maintenance plan. We don't currently have one, but this plan will give us direction, help the town with budgeting. In this plan, we would go road by road, fix all the drainage, repair the culverts, trim back the trees, any other issues that may arise. Once that's done, we can repave the road, hopefully knowing that when it's completed, we won't have to go back to do any maintenance for at least 10 years. I'm really excited to bring these visions to a reality, especially knowing that I have a great staff in this department. I'm 32 years old. I am young, but I'm motivated and determined to make this town more beautiful than it already is, and for the next generations to come, in hopes that my kids and your kids will want to raise their families here as well, just like I am. Thank you for your time, and please know on November 5th that every vote counts.
Thank you, Candidate Mears. This concludes the introduction portion of our program, and we will now segue to asking the candidates questions.
Would you guys prefer me to say 30 seconds or keep doing the sign? Some of you guys are reading, may not see me.
Yeah, 30, if you can say it and hold the sign. Say
Everybody
it.
good with that? All right.
Okay, duly noted, duly done.
At the discussion.
Okay, so we will jump right into the question to the candidates portion. And Candidate Mears, if we may, we'd like to start with you, and we are going to work our way in the opposite direction that the introductions were presented. So Candidate Mears, you'll have 2 minutes to respond to the question. What do you see as the biggest challenge to the highway supervisor, and how can the Town of Montgomery Board help you to alleviate these issues?
Well, I can make this like a 2-second answer and say manpower and money, but that's okay. I could say back in 2000, there were 12 full-time employees, and today we actually only have 9. As our responsibilities grow, we get roads added, we get cul-de-sacs, we take care of more parks now than ever. Benedict Park is a beautiful park, and there's a lot of work involved in it, mowing over the summertime. I guess as we run more shorthanded, one thing that can really help out is buying the right equipment to make the job easier. And I really think the 5-year road maintenance plan that I can work with the board to implement and really put the money where it belongs. And I think there's other avenues we could possibly take to try to drum up more money for the highway department, as far as application fees from these warehouses coming in or something. The more traffic that gets added to the roads, our budget gets tighter. It did get cut about $365,000 last year. So that is a tough thing to swallow. So as highway superintendent, I would work hard every day to make sure everybody gets the most out of their money, and that we get these things implemented and work to get a little extra manpower.
30 seconds.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Mears. We will now move on to a question to the judge candidates. Candidate Gorse, what have been the most effective methods for improving court procedures and efficiency, and what other methods would you suggest?
Well, as one of the judges, I think we run a very efficient program now, but you can always do better. And what we do is we study things and tweak things constantly. We don't want people to come into court and not understand the procedure and be frustrated and not know when they're going to come in or when they're going to leave. I was a defense lawyer for 20 years before I became a judge. So I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of procedures where I would sit and watch other judges and not be pompous up there with your black robe, but to be a public servant, as I said. And I think anybody who's been in my court, I don't see anyone here that's been there, but we really do pound that home. And my court officers, my clerks, we're constantly tweaking. I want to know when somebody has complained about something. We've received as that letter I read to you. The rest of it's on my website, by the way. We constantly deal with this, and of course the judges are constricted somewhat by security these days, because some police officers are here, and a court in Middletown was actually attacked, and so we have a lot of court security, which we need, we're very thankful the court system provides to us, but it does cause frustration. The other thing that causes frustration is our Constitution. We have the best Constitution in the world, as you all know, but it provides for individual rights, a jury of your peers, and other wonderful matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Gorse. Candidate Mitchell, what do you see as the most effective methods for improving court procedures and efficiency, and what other methods would you suggest?
Well, as time has gone on, there have been many more laws that have been enacted to improve court procedures. Back in the olden days, anybody here ever seen My Cousin Vinny? And when Joe Pesci's in the motel and the prosecutor, well, they're playing golf, and the prosecutor says, "Oh, sure, you can see my file on the eve of trial." And he slams a big box down. That's how it used to be. On the eve of trial, you'd turn over some paperwork, the parties would share information, and then they enacted laws for discovery and motion practice, and that really helped move things forward in a more judicious, quick manner so that cases didn't linger around. That pendulum is about to swing the other way beginning in January. There's some new laws regarding bail and discovery, and I think staying on top of the law and really understanding it and knowing how to implement it is going to be very, very important. I think recently there have been a lot of, you may want to call them boutique courts. They're not so boutique. Things like drug treatment court, things like dispute resolution and mediation projects, especially in local courts where the offenses are minor. People may be neighbors, know each other very well, and it's really a matter of sitting down and working things out. Those help to weed those cases out of the court calendar proceedings so that you can deal with the more serious things.
30 seconds.
And I also believe in managing your nightly court calendar. I really believe in staggering your scheduling so that people do not have to come into a courtroom and sit for many long hours waiting for the entire calendar to be heard, but can come in and in a rather succinct time be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Mitchell. We're now going to move on to the council members, and each council candidate will be asked first one question with 2 minutes to respond. We will start with Candidate Keenan and go in that direction. And then the second question, we will start with Candidate Hoyt and come back this way. Is that confusing enough?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. Candidate Keenan, what do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
Okay. The biggest issue, and this is in a lot of places, and it's one word, it's called communication. On a town board, if the town board can't effectively communicate with themselves to the public and to people that come in front of the town board, they're not effective. Okay, we have to have effective communication. We have to have good listening skills, and we have to work towards a common goal. That doesn't mean we have to agree all the time. All right, but we have to give people the courtesy and respect that they're due. And communication is the key to that. If I came up to you and just stared at you, you don't know what I want, but I might want something that you don't know. And communication also with the town and the 3 villages. They have communication when they have to. They have joint public hearings like with the annexation of property recently in Walden. There were talks with the Recreation Department with Walden covering the parks for the town, and I guess that didn't work out so good. But with the 3 villages in the town, and Mr. Mears touched on a little bit, was a joint service. There's got to be things that we can do joint service or shared services, and I know people don't really like to talk about that. There were talk years ago with the police department, but there's no harm in discussing it. What I would do is put a team together from each jurisdiction, and we'll brainstorm ideas. We'll get some input from the public, because the bottom line is to save tax dollars. And if we can do things shared service with the villages and the towns still keeping their identities, why not give it a try? Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. Candidate Warrington, what do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
Well, I believe basically, with the town of Montgomery, there's lots of issues, whether it's a comprehensive plan, the police department working out of rental trailers, basically, I see the biggest issue here is something seems to be broken as far as working through these problems in a timely manner and following through on the issues. We seem to get distracted from the next issue. It's a medline, and the last issue gets dropped and doesn't get completed. And I think basically we just have to stay focused on the issues, because, you know, one person, their biggest issue for the town may be a medline issue. Someone else, it's you know, the ambulance response time and the fact that they, you know, they're struggling to stay afloat, you know. A lot of these problems, we have solutions. You know, there's different solutions to, there's not just one solution to any of the problems that we have. But we have to work together on the town board with the ability that the town has to effect these changes. We have to work as a team, basically, because no one person in their plan can make anything happen. There's a lot of opportunity here for the town. It's a great town, and I think a lot of people here have the same concerns, and we just all have to focus on what we have in common, and I think we have a bright future here. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. Candidate Brown, what do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
So one word, development. As I stated in my opening statement, this town has way too much development going on with no plan for the future. So an example, you were saying the question includes the villages, including the villages. Well, all the development in the town includes the villages. We are all residents here, whether you live in a village or you live on the outskirts, like me. We all live here. We're all constituents. We're all voters. So, you know, each village has its own issues. The Medline issue with regards to the close proximity to a historic village, the location. Project Sailfish with its potential impacts to the village of Walden with their wells and the 24 other properties before they're effluent that they're discharging from the project will get to their wells. Or the kids that swim in Worcester Grove, if there is a discharge. While I understand that industries are important because they develop ratables. So that's another way that we're all tied together. We all pay taxes. So if we can increase our ratables, I'm often told that decreases our taxes. And not only that, these industries that bring jobs. And I understand there's a lot of open jobs in the town. Well, we need to have more people living here. And we need to have more neighbors. That way we can converse to people. And we need to be a more open, transparent government and be able to feel comfortable talking to one another. So again, my answer would be our biggest issue is the development that's currently going on in the town.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Feller, what do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
Well, I think that most of the issues have been touched upon. I have some personal issues that I'd like to bring out. I mean, I'm all for communication. Without communication and without good respect for each other, we're not going to go anywhere. One of the things I like to see in the town hall, and I'm not sure what the villages do, but there is no performance review system in the town hall for any of our employees. There is no results required. There is no goals and objectives. This is something, when I was in Con Ed, became a big issue because the purpose of a performance review is not to tell somebody how bad they are. It's to give them a sense of where they are and a sense of worth. We have a major corporation, so to speak. There's department heads. There's no results required. There's no performance reviews. There's no goals and objectives. So I like to see that initiated. Consolidation of services is right at the top of my list too, and it's not only consolidation of services for potentially the police department, which we've beat around for the last 15 years. Parks and Rec is an area we can really improve upon. I know it was touched upon last year. It's something that the town has to get deeply involved with because our kids have no place to go in the town in our own fields. We have organizations in this town that are willing to have clinics, willing to use our fields, pay us. It could be a revenue producer, a place for the kids to go. Also for our senior citizens. It's not only for the it's the kids, but we have a growing senior citizen population. And I know we're running out of time. Besides Parks and Rec for the senior citizens, we have a major, major situation with our ambulance. And we have to sit down and get that resolved. It's not going to go away. All right? You have a good chance of getting a cat out of a tree with our fire department faster than you have somebody responding with a heart attack. And that cannot go on. There's too many old people, myself included. But
Time, Ron. Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Cockburn, what do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
Okay, I believe the most important issue is the lack of a comprehensive plan right now, because that is the basis from which everything else proceeds. There are people that don't know if they're going to have a junkyard right up against their property. There are other people who don't know if they're going to be looking up at a warehouse that extends for at least a mile in front of their property. Your property values will plummet. Properties will be sold in bulk. Everybody's afraid of takeovers from other communities. That's the fastest way to have it happen, is to over-industrialize right inside a residential neighborhood and drop those property values. And when people pick up and leave, someone else comes in and picks up the slack, and they take houses in bulk. I'd also like to say that look at what happened to the people on Goodwill Road by ShopRite. No comprehensive plan. Now those people have a berm where their nice backyard was, and they're going to look up at a big glass and metal building. After paying 60 years in taxes, is that fair? It's been demolition by neglect across the board on every level in this town. Our infrastructure, our buildings, the government code, you name it. The ambulance corps. That was built during my term with a grant. The ambulance corps is being charged $600 a month for a structure built by a grant. Demolition by neglect across the board, comprehensive plan first, and a moratorium now. There is no vested interest and no as of right because there are no permits and no approvals at this point in time. No one should have to wake up and find out they're going to have 300 trucks a day going in and out past their house. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Hoyt?
Yes,
What do you feel is the most important issue concerning the town of Montgomery, including the villages, and what would you do to address it?
I think a lot of them have already been touched on, but I do agree that the comprehensive plan has to be updated, and we have to get some, we have to put a committee together of very good demographics of the whole town, and hopefully that will fit into what everybody's saying, because I agree with the communication and the respect, but we have to come together as a whole town and figure out what we want. And also, I mean, I've been on the board on and off since 2000, and I've had the opportunity to live through some severe financial stress that everybody went through during the recession. And ratables are extremely important, and you just need them. And we also have to realize when the auditors just came in and spoke to us, and they talk about our out into the future costs that we're going to have with all our legacy expenses with our employees. And not that we're going to have to write a check for $19 million tomorrow, but that money is going to have to be made up somewhere down the future. And if we don't have a good bank of ratables, it's going to make it so the people that have lived here aren't going to be able to. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt.
I guess I'm on the hot seat again, right?
That you had to go last. Now you get to go first, Candidate Hoyt. And the question's prefaced with the comment, in the town of Montgomery, paid council members are allowed health care benefits subsidized by tax dollars that can become a lifetime benefit. As a part-time public servant, do you feel the taxpayer should pay for your health care, and why?
Okay, well, I guess number one, everything is subsidized by the taxpayers, but I don't take the health insurance. I take the buyout. The way I look at it is the town of Montgomery, we haven't ever taken a raise as long as I was on the town board, except for once, and I voted against it. The town board, we've kept our salary extremely low, realizing that the health benefits are a big part of that. I think if you look across other townships, I think we are still probably in the middle of the pack or a little bit lower for our compensation package.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. Candidate Cockburn, as a part-time public servant, do you feel that the taxpayers should pay your health care, and why?
No, I don't believe the taxpayers should subsidize my health care. Taxpayers should pay taxes for things that they're going to get benefits back from. Taxpayers pay enough state, county, federal taxes. Your money should come back and work for you. I don't see how paying for my health care is going to help you. The police don't get health care. I think if you're going to get anything, you should pay into it. I think that there's one thing that I was shocked while supervisor is the town used to have a retirement plan of 5 years or 5 years of service or 55 years of age. And that's not the industry, private industry standard. And I had to write a check for $10,000 to somebody in Kentucky because he worked at town 5 years. I think that all of that needs to be cleaned up and put to industry standards. I think it's a waste of our money. I think it's been an enticement for the wrong people to grab and hold on to office. I think it's been used like a game of capture the flag. You get in, you stay there, and then you don't do anything, you just collect, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Feller, as a part-time public servant, do you feel that the taxpayers should pay for your health care, and why?
I was a town councilman, and I did not take the health care package. I took the buyout. I was fortunate enough to have a company that I worked for that supplied my health care. The buyout was there. I have to echo what Mark said. In case anybody doesn't know, a town councilman makes $100 a week, and a lot should be expected of us, and a lot of time should be put in. I think maybe if we had to get rid of the health care benefit and maybe make the salary a little bit more competitive or a little bit more in line with the rest of the county, that would be the way to go. There are people that need that health care benefit, and they may be in office now or were in office, and I certainly wouldn't like to take that away from them tomorrow. So there could be a plan to grandfather them in or gradually work something out that is mutually beneficial to the taxpayer and also to your representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Brown, as a part-time public servant, do you feel that the taxpayer should pay for your health care, and why?
So during my time in Leadership Orange, a U.S. Army sergeant once said 3 things. Communicate your message, lead by example, and eat last. But right now, the most important thing is to lead by example. Do I think that the taxpayers should pay for our health care? Absolutely not. My father always said, why does a part-time employee get paid full health insurance? We must be role models for our employees as board members. Part-time employees for the town, they don't get paid full health care, and neither should we. And I understand what you guys have said with the buyout, but for me, it shouldn't even be a question. There should be no buyout. There should be no buyout, and there should be no paid health insurance. We are public servants. We are here to do right by the community, and we are elected by the community. So if elected, I will work towards changing this policy to ensure that we are all equal between board members and employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Warrington, as a part-time public servant, do you feel that the taxpayer should pay for your health care, and why?
Well, I believe basically whatever the compensation is, it needs to be open and transparent, and I think every taxpayer deserves the right to know what the compensation is. I'm not doing this per se just to get health insurance. I'm not looking to get a career or get lifetime coverage or anything. I think that, you know, compensation, whether it's a $100 a week paycheck or if it's maybe part of health insurance, maybe a council member may pay part of the insurance themselves. I think whatever this process should be, it should be, you know, we want people to be able to have a desire to dredge through the process of being on town council. You know, whether it's a higher pay or, you know, as far as getting people that are going to volunteer their time completely 100%, I don't think the industry really does that. Other people that work for the town, whether they're full-time, they get compensated. But I think it just needs to be transparent. And I think every taxpayer should know what the compensation is and what the options are. And, you know, I'm open to listen to what the public wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington.
Thanks.
Candidate Keenan, as a part-time public servant, do you feel that the taxpayer should pay for your health care, and why?
Did that? Well, I'll tell you how I feel, and then I'll tell you why. I think as a part-time employee or part-time public servant, as a public servant, are you coming and doing 1 or 2 hour meetings twice a month? If you are, then you're really not serving the public. So if you're doing a real part-time job like part-time employees are, going in, digging into books, doing research, doing homework, coordinating with constituents, with other offices, employees, you should have an opportunity to buy into health insurance. That's how I feel. I don't think you should get it for free, or we. I'm not on the board, so I'll say we anyway. I don't think it should be a lifetime. You leave the board, you lose your health insurance. But there's got to be some formula, because there's other places I know that I've spoken with employers. They do offer some limited health insurance to part-time employees. And all that would have to be discussed and worked out. But flat out, I didn't decide to run, number one, to get paid, and number two, to get the health insurance. And if it's legal that I have to take the subsidy to buy out, I'm going to donate it, and I'll announce what organizations are going to get that money. Because I kind of already talked to the finance people, and I don't know if I have a choice on that. Do we have a choice on that? Can you just say no? If you're going to make me take it, I'm going to give it away, because that's not why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. We are now going to ask the supervisors a series of 3 questions. We're going to stagger the questions so that each candidate gets the first word and the next guy gets the last word, et cetera, and so on. And you will have 2 minutes to respond to these questions. So we will start with former Mayor Marr. And here is the first question regarding a comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan, be it for business or government, is an outline that defines goals to achieve, establishes policies to enable achievement, and creates action items that will successfully accomplish the intended goals. It is an outline that evolves as new ideas and circumstances flow into the mix. Former Mayor Marr, what is your position on developing an updated comprehensive plan as soon as possible to make sure all the developments being requested are in the overall best interest of the township and its residents?
Listen, everybody, we need to update the comprehensive plan as soon as humanly possible. And we worked on this in Walden. I've had that experience in Walden. And over a 6-year period of time, the benefit isn't just planning and putting thoughts together and changing zoning and a lot of the stuff that we're going to be focused on in the town. It's the actual discussion. It's the action of having all of these things come up to the table that you otherwise maybe wouldn't in a regular town board meeting, and then putting those thoughts and those conversations to action. The fact that we haven't had an updated plan over the last 30 years isn't just about not having a plan. It's about being robbed of those discussions that we should have had. A comp plan should be established and then looked at every 5 years. And that's how we've done things in the village of Walden for a very long time. And as supervisor, that's the type of leadership that I would provide. We need to absolutely make sure that we hire a firm or an individual that's going to put a deep dive into communicating with the public. We need to do a questionnaire. We need to get feedback from thousands of residents. And one thing that we know for sure if you attend a public town board meeting is we have an active citizenry right now. We have people that are passionate. I go door to door. That's how I campaign. And by going door to door, I've had conversations with hundreds of people, and they all want us to look for a future that doesn't just involve, not all, I'm sorry, a majority of residents want us to look for a future that doesn't just involve warehouses. That's not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing. It crosses party lines. And this is someone who has knocked on the doors and really just felt that same emotion that they have, because I'm raising my daughter here. And a lot of people are seeing their kids move down south because they don't have opportunities. We have to get to the development moratorium. Is that also part of this question, Keith?
I'm going to give you 1 minute to answer the follow-up question, part 2 of that.
Okay. We really need to look at this because at the end of the day, when we're talking about building a plan for the future, we need to do a deep dive in this. And I believe I'm the right person for the job. I've done it in Walden, and I have a lot of good ideas I hope to put in action.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. We will have, there's a second question, part 2 of this, and we will give 1 minute for your response. Former Mayor Marr, what is your position on a moratorium for all projects currently not approved, including mega warehouses, to ensure that they will meet the smart growth and harmonious development concepts?
On the agenda for my very first board meeting as town supervisor will be a conversation about a development moratorium. It merits a conversation. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people that may say, oh, you put a moratorium in, you're putting up a big sign that says we're closed for business. But after doing some due diligence myself, I learned that we've had some moratoriums put in place by municipalities as they go through their comprehensive plan, and it was a natural occurrence. Tuxedo, Beacon. When talking to these supervisors and these mayors and these elected officials, they talked about the benefits. So I would say that it definitely merits conversation. I would like to lead that conversation, and we don't have to look further than the town of Montgomery. We put a solar moratorium in place, and at the last town board meeting, we heard our attorney say that they're getting conversations off the hook. When is the moratorium up? We still want to come in. So I don't think we're going to scare away businesses, and I think it's worth definitely the taxpayers' time to have the conversation and potentially to take a pause and really rethink things as we put together our comprehensive plan.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Supervisor Winchell, what is your position on developing an updated comprehensive plan as soon as possible to make sure all the developments being requested are in the overall best interest of the township and its residents?
I ran for office. My first target was water and sewer. I couldn't understand why it was never done. And the comprehensive plan is here, but the root of the problem is actually water and sewer. If you look at 747, there's no utilities, but the state and the county call it what? Your industrial corridor. How's that possible? Why Stonecastle has no water and sewer? You can't have it. You can't have an industrial corridor or industrial area zoned if there's no water and sewer. And this is the biggest problem we have is understanding the comprehensive plan. It's the people's plan. We're a representative republic. So it's not the supervisor's plan or really the town board's plan. The comprehensive plan needs to be done by the people of the town. If you look at the roads on Maple Avenue, New Road, Ridge Road, they're all dead-end roads, and they were made that way by the government. But the commercial properties are at the end of those dead-end roads. Try getting a tractor-trailer down those roads. Why were they ever in I-1 areas? There's never anything possible having water and sewer on the end of Ridge Road, Maple Avenue, all else, unless we had a service road put in on 84. It's not even possible. So the first thing is we need to have a utilities plan, a comprehensive utilities plan, flow management, to say, hey, can we actually realistically put water and sewer on those roads? Because the state didn't do it. They put $150 million into 747 with no water and sewer. And I'm saying, I'm a contractor that does water and sewer. I'm saying, that's the first thing you put in. You don't put a road in. I grew up on Drury Lane.
30 seconds.
So that's one of the biggest issues. We need a comprehensive plan. We were negligent, and it never happened, and it went on for years. So that really rooted from the problem. We have a fragmented system. The villages are old governments. They're old industrial revolution governments. They have water and sewer. The town has really no water and sewer. It's a fragmented system. So we're trying to tie that in. That's your first plan. So the citizen can actually say, where do I want the residential neighborhoods and where do I want the commercial to be in there?
Time.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. As a follow-up, you'll have 1 minute. What is your position on a moratorium for all projects not currently approved, including mega warehouses, to ensure that they will meet smart growth and harmonious development concepts?
Okay, I'm going to differ. We can't afford it. We can't afford a moratorium. I look back at the landmaster lawsuits, everything that went up to this. You're not going to afford a moratorium. So basically, you can try to say you can have a fragmented moratorium. Good luck, because we don't have enough ratables coming in to defend those cases at this point. We're surrounded by Wallkill, Newburgh, New Windsor, and there's a green spot in the middle. It's called Montgomery, and it's coming. And it's coming fast. So we better get off the stick and get a comprehensive plan in effect. Because you do a moratorium, you're not going to afford it. And that's from our legal also. So.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Mayor Leahy, what is your position on developing an updated comprehensive plan as soon as possible to make sure that all the developments being requested are in the overall best interest of the township and its residents?
Back in 2002, when I first became a trustee in the Village of Maybrook, one of the biggest concerns that I did have at that time is that we did not have an updated comprehensive plan. It was last updated in 1976. Our concern was setting a floor plan for the zoning boards, for the planning board to go by for future growth. We put one in place in 2006. Since 2006, I've been around up till today, now as mayor. We have made upgrades to the zoning to address issues. We have a traditional downtown design that we put in for our main street. We have identified other problems within the zoning that we saw for future down the road, and we're being proactive about it. Based on what happened in the town here with all of these junkyards, we immediately jumped on that because we noticed in our I-3 zone that we had junkyards included in that still. We just passed that at our last board meeting, and now it's been removed from there. So junkyards are not permitted in the I-3 zone. So I'm very proud of the fact that we've stayed ahead of the curve. Now you're running into the town. The town has some major issues right now, and the cart's before the horse. So what you need to do is you need to identify what's going on, because these projects are going through the planning boards and they're going through the zoning boards, and they do not have any floor plan in place to be able to address this. So a comprehensive plan has to be put in. We have to identify smart growth, and if need be, we have to look at putting in a moratorium.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. As a follow-up, what is your position on a moratorium for all projects not currently approved, including mega warehouses, to ensure that they will meet smart growth and harmonious development concepts?
I am concerned about the projects that are being pushed through right now, being the fact that they are already through the process. So once I get in, if elected by the good people of the town of Montgomery, I would like to look at it with the town board, get together with the legal people, and go over where we're at that point, because a lot can happen between now and January 1st. That is a concern. I am the only one on this board, I think, up on this dais that has called a moratorium. We had one in the Village of Maybrook for almost 2 years when we were building our sewer treatment plant.
30 seconds.
That's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. Well, folks, we have 2 questions remaining for the supervisor candidates. Thank you immensely for your patience and your grace in this crowded room in this long process. Thank you very much. Moving on to the second question, IDA approvals and pilot offerings. The Industrial Development Authority is a public benefit corp. Its job is to encourage developers by offering benefits to move to the town of Montgomery, after careful analysis of the benefits to be gained by the township. As example, in addition to the tax-based benefit and quality of jobs, will applicants relocate higher paid executive staff to the area who will purchase houses, goods, and entertainment? Offer full-time permanent jobs with adequate wages and benefits as compared to part-time jobs and/or mediocre wages? And will they provide support to our community's social and cultural enhancements? The second question, we will start with Supervisor Winchell. And the question is, what priorities should a supervisor set to weigh in on projects before the IDA? Should there be stipulation that requires companies to make a commitment to show their intent to prove local economy above just offering jobs?
Okay. The supervisor's job is not anything really to do with the IDA, because I got off the IDA for a reason. Is to direct the applicants to the right process, planning board, zoning board, IDA, things like that. The IDA is a separate agency. When I arrived, they said, oh, the supervisor has to go on to the IDA. I'm like, why? Because I'm here as a supervisor to actually direct our investors coming into our town in the right boards and right direction. I got involved in the Paris report. Anybody familiar with that? Is basically what we have to identify how many workers and the promises made by the investors were actually there. Well, that was another blunder. It wasn't kept up. So the first thing we did was try to get in compliance with that. The IDA was set up by the New York State Governor's Office back in the day, but in 1970, 69, 70. And it was basically they formatted so we have it local control of it. The big thing is a labor agreement. Otherwise, just go 485B, because they have no labor agreement. So the IDA is set up, we're nearly $3 a square foot here in Montgomery. Northern Jersey's about $1.20, $1.30. Pennsylvania and Connecticut are also about a third less than we are in Montgomery, New York. So you're not competitive. But the big thing is having labor for the construction of those jobs. You have no tools once they go 485B. They go 485B, you lost all your labor, all your local. And listen, my friends in Texas, they're 20% of my labor costs here. So I don't get anything off of Neelytown Road. I don't get any work at all. We're not competitive here to work here. So our hotel rooms are full, our laundromats are full. We're building more hotel rooms and more laundromats because all the out-of-state workers are coming here to work. I get it. So the IDA is, if we don't want the IDA, then dissolve it. That's up to the governor's office. I would do that. You know.
No. Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Mayor Leahy, we're going to go this way if that's all right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mayor Leahy, what priorities should a supervisor set to weigh in on projects before the IDA? Should there be stipulations that require companies to make a commitment to show their intent to improve local economy above just offering jobs?
I think after we saw what happened with the Medline project coming through the village here, through the town, I'm sorry, we saw some flaws in the IDA. There was a offer of a pilot agreement to them. They actually decided to take the 485B instead. I'm not in disagreement that I disagree with the fact that there's no negotiations can be made for local labor on top of the 485B. I think with the pilot that was offered to the Medline people was not up to par, and the decision was made to pull it back after they got some feedback from the residents and from Senator Skoufis at the time. It was a big concern for me. I'm hoping that Amazon follows in suit with this and withdraws their application as well and decides to go with the 485B instead of going with the pilot agreement. There is a lot of concerns what's going on. I think that's one of the first things I want to address with the IDA is to go over what the problems are, what the flaws are, that they do offer these companies to come into here and they bring good jobs and they bring good wages to this town.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. Former Mayor Marr, you could get the microphone.
Oh man, this is gonna be tough. 2 minutes?
Yes.
That's it?
Would you like the question again?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What priorities should a supervisor set to weigh in on projects before the IDA? Should there be stipulation that requires companies to make a commitment to show their intent to improve local economy above just offering jobs?
Yes, okay, the town supervisor, if I'm elected town supervisor, I'm gonna work hand in hand with the Town of Montgomery IDA. It is vital. Do you know why it's vital? Because in the absence of the Town of Montgomery IDA, and again, we're one of the only towns in Orange County that has our own town IDA, we rely on the Orange County IDA, okay? And we don't have a say in any of that. And the Orange County IDA comes in and gives these pilot programs, and the Town of Montgomery does not have a voice. The people who thought up having a town IDA wanted to protect us from the county IDA and make sure that we had a say and we had a conversation about what resources and what benefits could be provided. It could be a huge resource. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars in the IDA right now, and it's not just for pilots to make sure that people aren't paying their taxes. We could be using those funds on workforce development. People don't talk about workforce development enough. I could talk all day about it. That's one of the biggest issues facing not just Orange County, but the entire Hudson Valley and New York State. We're talking about bringing jobs and ratables, but no one wants to talk about how we need to make sure and educate and train Town of Montgomery residents so that they can be the ones to benefit and take those jobs. Right now, Cardinal Health just had a job fair. A friend of mine just started working there, and they asked me to help recruit people because they have 30 vacancies. That's a 900,000 square foot facility that does distribution in medical supplies, just like Medline. And there are 30 vacancies right now for people who aren't working there. Those jobs coming in, hundreds of jobs, they're not just gonna go to Town of Montgomery residents. And that's part our fault. So I would get in there day one, I would utilize all of the resources the IDA has to offer. A lot of them we don't even know. And I would I would make sure that it benefits the town and works for us. People want to demonize, the IDA, or they want to demonize the Orange County Partnership. If we have a plan, which we hope to put in place, hopefully over the next year, 18 months, we can direct them to help us execute our plan, which does not need to be warehouses. But in the absence of a plan and direction to the partnership or to the IDA, that's what we get. Do you know why? Because that's who wants to come here. Route 84 and that intersection, warehouses will always want to come here. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. All right, we are coming to our last question, after which point we will have an intermission and we can field some questions from the audience. I'll cover that in one moment. So our last question to the supervisors this evening, if we could start with you, Mayor Leahy. More is accomplished when all members of any unit work together, family, business, or government. Differences in opinion promote healthy discussion and can create a solution that most can live with. While in office, what do you feel is your biggest accomplishment on behalf of your community, and what steps will you take to promote healthy discussions regarding issues that need to be addressed in the future?
I think what I bring to the table is the leadership and the experience to be able to work with a village board over the years to get things accomplished in the village of Maybrook. When I first came in as mayor in 2008, we ran into the worst recession ever. We lost an elementary school, and a lot of people probably would have walked away and not done anything at that point. But we stuck it out, and we worked on our infrastructure, and we pounded away at it to get it better. Then we set up for the economic development, and finally it took us a good 8 years to get there. But we did our downtown traditional design. We set up the table for growth. And right now the village of Maybrook is on the path of moving forward in the future and is on a good path. And growth is on its way, and we're looking forward to it down the road. I think my biggest achievement inside for the village of Maybrook, I want to say, and I'm proud about, is the fact that we took on these major projects in the town, such as a sewer treatment plant, new government center, new senior center, and we were able to accomplish things, and we were able to keep the taxes reasonable for the residents.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy.
Thank you.
Former Mayor Marr, we could get the microphone over there.
Thank you.
While in office, what do you feel was your biggest accomplishment on behalf of your community? And what steps will you take to promote healthy discussions regarding issues that need to be addressed in the future?
We updated the comprehensive plan. That was an amazing experience. I look forward to applying that knowledge at the town level in this unique time. We requested, first thing, an audit from the New York State Comptroller. There were some people that were hesitant about it, but my reaction was, listen, let them tell us what we've been doing wrong. We'll be open to the community. And if we get some bad press because things are wrong, that's okay. It's okay. We'll work through it, and we'll create some good press through the changes in the revenue that we create and the problems that we fix. The town, I think, is in desperate need of a New York State Comptroller's audit. I worked through it. I experienced it, and I think it will be a huge benefit to the community. The Walden Youth Employment Program. As supervisor, you have 3 people here who deeply care about your community. We do, all 3 of us. I know maybe there'll be some negative comments from people, and supporters get aggressive and passionate, and that's okay. It happens. What separates, I believe, myself is the outside-the-box thinking. The way that I'll look at a problem and say, how do we solve this problem? And at the end of the day, the Youth Employment Program in Walden was a unique way to give youth opportunities that they did not have. And the Orange County Youth Bureau thought so much of it that each year since I've been gone, they put a grant in place to make sure that that program stays and continues to grow. And if elected town supervisor, I would expand that program townwide to ensure that Maybrook, Montgomery, and Walden residents both pretty much all had that opportunity to gain that experience. And that's also something the IDA could work with. They have funding to help support programs like that, which also is an industry builder. For me, I think the number one thing is constituent services. As mayor, I was able to pick up the phone, and people knew me as a leader and an energetic leader that wanted to solve problems. And getting a phone call from a local resident named Steve Nicoli and just sitting down and talking with him about the Hudson Valley Honor Flight and getting that established, that's the best thing I've ever done in my life. And that was something, just picking up the phone, hearing from a resident, getting people in a group together, and putting that together. And I'm so proud of that, and I hope to do a lot more of those things if elected supervisor, just those random phone calls to help people. Thank you.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Supervisor Winchell, while in office, what do you feel was your biggest accomplishment on behalf of your community? And what steps will you take to promote healthy discussions regarding the issues that need to be addressed in the future?
My biggest accomplishment in office was setting up a financial office for the clinical view. We looked at the budget, we went line by line, we added line items, we evaluated each item in the budget. We broke it all down. The highway department contract was certainly done in 2 meetings, and we implemented that fast and quick, decisive. One of the things I do is I lead from the front, and I look for my peripheral vision left and right to see who's with me. I did over 4,000 emails my first year, which was, I move. I wake up in the morning, and I'm pretty much on fire about 4 o'clock in the morning. So by 7 o'clock, I have a lot of coffee. I think being a capitalist, I always believe we're bleeding money constantly. The clock is ticking. I look at everything as, we need to move. At a board meeting, we need to move. Come prepared, come ready to go, bring your ammo, let's go, let's get it done. And because we're paying professionals to be there, and let's go. When we have time for public comment, I love public comment. I enjoy it, actually. And I like hearing different people's views, because I work on a job site with many different contractors. And I tell you what, we got to get a mission done. And we have to work with people we've never worked with before. The bottom line is we want to go home at the end of the day, everybody's safe, and we got the job done. That's the biggest thing. So everybody comes prepared to work. Work is my biggest word. And so that's
30 seconds.
Our budget, overestimating expenses, underestimating revenues, and getting really clinical and down and look at these line items and decide what is our realistic budget going to be this year, last year. Let's look back 10 years and see what we have. That's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. This concludes the question portion of our program. We're going to take a 15-minute intermission, and we ask everyone in the room, anyone in the room, to submit questions on the paper provided. These questions should be directed at all candidates and will be reviewed by the Walden Community Council during the break to ensure that the questions are not redundant or have already been asked, and to make sure that they're balanced, fair, and not of a personal nature. So please take 15 minutes, stretch, jot down a question, and again, thank you for your extraordinary civility.
Oh, stretching is a good one. God, I was still working at Soil and Water. Yes, it was 2000. Yep, good times.
Folks, Becky Pearson is collecting the questions. If you see her, you can hand them to her.
Please start finding your seat. We're going to begin here in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, we will begin the program.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would take your seats, we will proceed with the audience questions to the candidates. What would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance? And how would you prevent this from happening? Prevent?
I don't know, it's a question from them. What would you address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent them from happening? Well, there are issues. Yeah, so that's
Oh, them.
Please take your seats. Please take your seats.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 questions that were selected by the Community Council Committee. None of the questions are addressed to the judges or the Superintendent of Highway candidate, but everyone will be given 2 minutes to give their final comments after these questions. We are going to ask these questions and give each respondent 1 minute, and we'll move on. We will start with the supervisors again, and if we could start with former Mayor Marr. What would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent them from happening again?
Okay, thank you. This is huge. So at the last, not the last town board meeting, but at a recent town board meeting, not too recent, probably almost 2 months ago, a very alarming subject came about, and there was a request made from the Town of Montgomery Ambulance Corps. And it pretty much terrifies me that we haven't had that come up in another town board meeting since. And I think at the end of the day, that's something that we need to address immediately. And I think the issue is twofold. It's function and funding. We need to figure out and work with the Town of Montgomery Ambulance Corps to figure out how it's going to function moving forward. Is it going to be its own district? Is it going to be a public-private partnership? Is it going to be the town that takes the lead? No matter what, the Town of Montgomery cannot pass the buck on this. We need to be absolutely neck-deep into solving this issue, and we need to figure out the function, and then we need to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And by we, it doesn't necessarily have to be all in the Town of Montgomery taxpayer. There's a lot of things that you can do creatively and have a massive network to do that, to tap into potential public-private partnership or look into other grant funding.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Supervisor Winchell, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent them from happening again?
Since I know very little about this, I would get the right people at the table And so we're talking with the firehouses, but out the ambulance corps, but also everything comes down to money. You know, we have to way to finance it, and a way to work with, it's a private sector, work with we're looking at New Windsor, we're looking at Newburgh, looking at other areas, who's doing what. But I think getting right people at the table, because I'm a contractor, I really don't know much about it. All I know is I know our citizens need an ambulance to come to when they call. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Mayor Leahy, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and what would you do to prevent them from happening again?
Well, I'm very familiar with the fact that the ambulance corps is very important to the community, because back about 4 years ago, the town stopped allowing them to buy gas from them, and we welcomed them into the village of Maybrook, and we still give them gas today. I know what their struggles have been. We are a senior community. We have the Evergreens that are here. I just found out recently that the Maybrook Fire Department is no longer doing medical calls because there's lack of volunteers. So that's a big concern for me as well. I think we should be working with the Montgomery Ambulance Corps, and we should be doing as much as we can for them, because we do have a senior community here, and we do need a good response time to bring people if they need help.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy.
Thank you.
Candidate Hoyt. You have a microphone, sir? All right. It's on. Okay. What would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
Well, like everybody said, we have to get to the table. We have to figure out what the duties are going to be of the local ambulance corps. How much money are we going to fund it, and what are at the end what are we going to get for that money? Because the town used to fund the ambulance corps, and then they went out and started billing privately, and I was under the assumption when that happened, the town could no longer give taxpayers dollars when they started billing people. And now they're coming back and saying they don't have enough money, and that we got to come back to the table and try to figure something out. And I think that I think we all agree that it has to get done fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. Candidate Cockburn, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
Okay, the ambulance corps had a program and a plan in place, and the ball was dropped. We built the two-bay garage with grant funding that was secured, and the plan was to convert one of the upstairs above the attic space above the food pantry to a call center, because you have volunteers leaving their job and getting changed in McDonald's after work and sitting in McDonald's parking lot with their phone waiting for calls. I would restart the progress. I would get grants and funding back in. I would get those plans out to put a bathroom and a hazmat shower in, and I would treat the ambulance corps the way they should be treated, because that's an imperative service to our community. You need people then and there. There was an accident next door to my house, and they couldn't get there. They were overtaxed that day, and I watched my friend get airlifted out in a helicopter.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Feller, what would you do to address the major issue confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
Well, the first thing I would do is get the fire departments together and check out the feasibility of incorporating the ambulance corps into their firehouse. If discussions didn't go in the right direction there, I would seriously consider having a tax district where we collect money from the taxpayer to fund our ambulance corps. We have to buy new ambulances. We have to have some kind of communications, and it has to be funded. It has to be funded by the people who are using the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Brown, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
So in the industry that I work in, it's one of the most dangerous industries, and with 2 little kids, I can tell you I worry about if I ever have to call an ambulance, how fast they will come. The ambulance corps, to me, is one of the most vital industries in the town, along with the fire departments and our service areas. I was very disheartened when I heard that they were $300,000 in debt, and they didn't know if they were going to make it until the end of the year. And I'm not exactly sure, as a taxpayer, if that was ever solved. So the biggest thing is I would like to have open conversations publicly. These issues that come in front of the town board, they need to be stated on the agenda and they need to be continued until they're solved. So is this issue solved? I don't know. I would truly hope so. And if I get in office, I would really like to have those on the agenda so that way everybody can see what's going on and ensure the conversations continue with the ambulance corps so that way they do stay funded and their doors stay open. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Warrington, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
Well, I believe basically that all the residents in the town here feel that the ambulance corps is vital. I don't think there's a matter that they're not willing to support it financially. I think we just have to work out the details. We have to see what legally we can do. If they can collect from insurance companies for part of the fees and the town can subsidize, I think we need to allow that to continue on, and we just need to make sure that however we support it, we do it legally, and it's just a matter of taking care of the issue, you know, and doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. And Candidate Keenan, what would you do to address the major issues confronting our local ambulance, and how would you prevent it from happening again?
This is one of the issues I brought up earlier under quality of life, but I've already spoken with the ambulance corps leaders prior to them speaking with the town boards, and we discussed options. So hopefully I was able to help them a little bit. And it might come down to pass, there's going to be an ambulance tax district. If the other options don't work out, that might be the last solution. I know it's hard to balance volunteers and paid, but if you're going to respond, you have to have coverage. You have to have effective leadership. And then if you establish a tax district, there'll be accountability across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. We will now move on to the next question. And Candidate Brown, how about we start with you? Is that all right? Okay, we're going to give you 1 minute to respond, and here is the question. Last Tuesday, October 15th, there were 9 public hearings or meetings at different locations in town. Our outdated town/village format prohibits public involvement continuously. On top of that, we have 24 different taxing entities/districts in the town of Montgomery. If elected, would you support a true consolidation conversion? Versation. Sorry. The whole thing? Okay. Yes. Okay, so last Tuesday, there were 9 different public meetings or hearings at different locations within the town. Our outdated town-village format prohibits public involvement continuously. On top of that, we have 24 different taxing entities, districts in the town of Montgomery. If elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation? Oh, microphone.
I guess I'm not really supposed to answer this question. Okay, so I could tell you that if there's 9 public hearings in different locations, my biggest question would be, how does one person get to 9 different locations? I can tell you that my family, we go to almost every board meeting, every town meeting. I've been to the Village of Montgomery. I've been to the town meetings. So how is it that one person can truly stay on top of the pulse of it all? If we need consolidated areas, like the consolidated sewer district they were speaking about, I don't know why we don't have a consolidated sewer district if the town owns it and operates it. But there's several different areas that we need to look into and work together in the future to determine what is best for the residents, because if one resident can't make every meeting, well, then there's a problem, because every resident should have a voice.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. We go to Ron? Yeah.
All right.
Candidate Feller, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
I would support a true consolidation conversation, but I've been to those conversations before when I was in office, and wasn't on total consolidation. It was on issues. It was on police, fire department. We discussed that, and there's services, picking up garbage, whatever. The towns and the villages are separate entities. We've gone through this many times. The villages are territorial. They have their own boundaries, they have their own constituents, they have their own board, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but you know, these towns and villages did not pop up yesterday, and they've been in business for a long time. So I think if we do this, we should center on 2 or 3 of the major issues, again, that we can all agree upon to discuss, and not have a consolidation on every single subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Cockburn, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
Conversation, yes, absolutely. I would commence it by opening up the town hall, not just to public meetings, but to restart the past program that I had, where I would have seminars, forums, films. I would have speakers come in and talk. No one really has, as you could see, the responses, has like a formulated idea of what that means, total consolidation. So let's bring it before the public. Like affordable housing, I had seminars, people understood after attending the seminars, watching the films, hearing what was done elsewhere. I would definitely support a conversation, and I would provide the means, the information, and the proper data for people to make their own decisions about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Hoyt, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
Yes, I would. I would always welcome conversation on things that can save money, as long as we can really save money. I think the question is it's hard for me to understand, because I think a lot of these taxing authorities you're talking about are special districts which are set up to make sure that the people that benefit from that particular district are the people that are paying. So the consolidation on some of those issues I really don't understand. And even like fire districts, right? Fire district is a geography-based thing that has their own commissioners, and they make their own decisions. I mean, so I'm just a little confused on the question, but no, there is things that we should talk about: consolidation and shared services. I had a conversation with the highway deputy, or Mr. Mears, the other day, talking about maybe we should really be looking in on with the county on shared services on some of these roads that the county pays the town. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. Could we get a microphone over to Candidate Keenan? Thank you.
Sorry.
Candidate Keenan, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
I'll support any conversation, but true consolidation, I'm going to be like Ms. Cockburn and Mr. Hoyt down there. You're going to have to define that for me. Last week, the 4 fire districts had a state set date for the public hearings. We didn't arbitrarily set those. Other people maybe could have moved their public hearings. Maybe we should look at doing public hearings where people can come in and call in and on Skype. I don't know, but consolidating what? I mean, I said before, shared services, yes. Some services, maybe you can consolidate. Having a discussion, absolutely. I agree.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. We'll now ask the supervisors the same question. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Sorry. Candidate Warrington, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
Yeah, I definitely support conversation. I think wherever there can be cooperation and where it's a mutual benefit, I think is always a great thing. We need to respect different jurisdictions and those people that are put in those positions to manage those services, accordingly. We need to respect that authority also. But I think there's cooperation and a conversation is always a welcome.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. Rod, you have the mic. So Supervisor Winchell, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
Yes. I've been working on it with the county and our villages for quite some time. I look at the first thing, see what our biggest expenses, where we're bleeding the most at, and that's what I target that first, and that's it's something we have to address to survive in New York. We're having thousands of people leaving every week out of New York. We can't keep raising taxes. We have to consolidate. It has to get realistic here. The 24 special districts, I'm not sure, we've got about 32, 34 special districts. And I'm not sure what that 24, we have about 24 unfunded right now, drainage districts and things like that, but I'm not sure what that's about. But if we're talking about firehouses and things like that, okay. Yeah.
These are the questions posed at the public.
No, I got you. I understand. So any consolidation is going to help, say in New York, because we're the highest tax in the land, and people are migrating out. We've got to do something fast.
Thank you, Supervisor Winsel. Mayor Leahy, if elected, would you support a true consolidation conversation?
I think consolidation is something that should be approached on a yearly basis at least, and you should be meeting with the villages and discussing these things. There's always cost savings, and there's decisions that have to be made, but there also has to be a group effort of having the mayors from the other villages cooperating with the town supervisor and the boards cooperating as well. I think that it's something that should be broached by all of the town as a whole, and it's something we should look at and always entertain if it's brought to our attention. Specifically, we don't have anything specifically that we've talked about, but just as a whole, if we're talking about consolidation, yes, consolidation should always be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. Former Mayor Marr.
Thank you. Welcome to New York State. We are a home rule state. This is how it works. We have 1 million taxable districts, and when I was elected mayor, I worked with Mayor Leahy. We both got elected around the same time. We would meet regularly on shared services, and we successfully put into place some programs that saved both of our taxpayers some money. We actually worked with the town supervisor as well on the Code Red services back in the day when it was beneficial. Since then, it's been a little different, but definitely when I was mayor, I put those meetings in action. And if elected supervisor, we would all get together and save where we can. In terms of consolidation, 30 seconds, great. This all starts with education as well. New York State, when Senator Larkin was in office, promoted a program and it was passed. And a lot of residents may not know this, but you actually have the ability to take part in consolidation and dissolution. And dissolution is a word that we need to use with consolidation, because consolidation isn't just, we're going to consolidate. No, it involves actually having a dissolution of an entity to create a shared service agreement. And the issue that comes up with people is they're willing to pay just a little bit more for that service. And that's an important discussion we need to have.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. We're going to move on to the next question. And candidate Warrington, why don't we start with you? Medline and Sailfish projects, as designed currently, are projected to pay $5,617,000 in annual local property taxes. $3.9 million and some odd dollars are projected to be annual payments to Valley Central School District. That equals 712 homes with a market value of $250,000. If we lose out on these projects, what do you propose we do to counter the tax benefit they would have provided? In 1 minute.
Well, I believe, if you're looking at money that isn't coming in yet, that would potentially come in, you would naturally you'd have to make up additional expenses for the future with the existing tax base, or you have to plan ahead for what type of future tax base fits into the future that our town wants. Whatever type of, whether it's warehousing or other industrial base and employment. But that tax base would either come from people, or individuals, or it'll come from businesses.
Okay. Thank you for your response, candidate Warrington. Candidate Keenan, if we lose out on these projects, what do you propose we do to counter the tax benefit they would have provided?
Can you read the whole question?
Sure. Medline and Sailfish projects, as designed, currently are projected to pay $5.6 million in annual local property taxes. $3.9 million are projected to be the annual payments to the school district. That equals 712 homes with a market value of $250,000. If we lose out on these projects, what do you propose we do to counter the tax benefit they would have provided?
Well, until they're built and they're paying taxes, there's no tax benefit, number one. Number two, I don't hear any mention of tax relief, because what happens is if they're paying their full tax, and I'm assuming this is their full tax, some places have a tax to the max policy, and you're not going to see tax relief. And people can do whatever they want with numbers. What would I do for the relief? There is no relief. They're not paying taxes today. All right? It's not there. It's imagined money until they're paying and writing a check. And that's what any business that wants to come here. It's not just Medline and Sailfish. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. If we could go down to Candidate Hoyt. And if we lose out on these projects, what would you propose we do to counter the tax benefit they would have provided?
Well, there, excuse me, there again, I don't know if there's anything you really can do. I mean, you're either going to have the ratables or you're not going to have the ratables. And whether there's the residential boom doesn't seem to be going on now as it was in the past. And then you also have to look at the difference in the services, which is demanded. There is a demand of services no matter what new development you have, but what kind of demand are you getting versus residential versus commercial? But to answer that question, I don't know what you could do on a town board level to make up for a rateable that you're not going to get, except probably have to be a lot tighter on your budgets if you want to keep the tax rates in check.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. Candidate Cockburn? If we lose out on these projects, what would you do, what would you propose we do to counter the tax benefit that they would have provided?
First of all, I'd be more than happy. It keeps me up at night. We wouldn't be losing these projects. They're a detriment to the community. You can see what happened in Middletown with mile after mile of farms turned into unreusable buildings, parking lots, vacant mess. We can do better. If you meet me after this meeting and look at a conglomerate, the residents protecting Montgomery added up all these projects, the amount of road traffic, truck traffic, it's going to take away from the community. And it doesn't matter how much they would give as ratables when they do, it's not going to contribute anything. There is no integrity in either of these projects, and without a comprehensive plan and a moratorium to get those $4 million that the town never applied to, that Amazon did, into farmland preservation.
Time.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Feller?
I went up, go ahead. I know the question.
You know the question.
I went up to the warehouse that's being built across from ShopRite the other day, and that warehouse is going to be 87,000 square feet. I looked at the footprint of it. Medline is going to be 12 times that footprint. That equates to 5 Yankee stadiums being placed next to each other. If anybody went down to Yankee Stadium. What are we going to do? Maybe we're going to have to revise the zoning to attract a different type of structures and a different type of environment that we can live with a little bit better in that particular area in both places. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Brown, would you like the question read?
This time I'm good.
Okay.
So what would I do to counter the tax benefits? Well, first off, pretty simple. There's no benefits. They're not here yet. Let's hope that they don't come here because they're not being good neighbors. But think about this. If we're worried about how to counter the tax benefits, and I'm not trying to stray from the question, but what about the expenses that we're going to have to pay for the Village of Walden residents when Sailfish's wastewater treatment plant goes offline and we now need to pay for their water? The 7,000 residents in the Village of Walden, we need to pay for their drinking water, which is vital to their daily life. The expenses on the impacts of the roads and these services that these mega warehouses are going to require. the land values of the homes near these developments. And quickly, before I run out of time, think about this. The labor that they say that these mega warehouses are going to provide, it's easy. If they don't come here, they can go to the existing opportunities that we have. It's just a matter of what people want to do for work.
Time.
Yes.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. We'll now ask the supervisors the question. And if we could start with Mayor Leahy. Mayor Leahy, if we lose out on these projects, what do you propose we do to counter the tax benefits they would have provided?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I think that these companies that are coming in right now, they have an obligation to do the right thing by the town and the residents. I do have some concerns about the Bluefish project because of the wastewater treatment plant that they're putting there and where that effluent's going and how it's going to affect the people up in Walden. How are we going to make up for this? I am not sure how we're going to make up for it, but I do know that Exit 5 is the gem of the Hudson Valley in my opinion, and that we have some good land in Montgomery. We should look at the zoning, and we should do some extensive looks at that and make sure that we're doing the right thing. That's basically it for me.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. Former Mayor, well, okay, Rod, Supervisor Winchell.
Okay, I need about 30 minutes on this. There was 11 projects in 2019. There's 25 in 2018. There's about 40 in front of the planning board. So just on Bracken Road alone, you're looking at about 5 or 6 projects alone. Just I know the people who had those the Stabiskis and all those properties there. The property on 747 where Blue Water, Shellfish, blah, blah, blah. That's Haber's property. He bought that in like 1970. That's about the 4th project that went on that land that never got done. That was the old McDonald farm. There's a lot of history here, but the taxes paid on a lot of these properties as soon as they bought it, like September 27th, Medline bought that property. They doubled the taxes on that land and automatically went to $34,000 from $16,000, just losing the ag exemption. So the school needs money, the town needs money. We want pavers, we want to pave roads, we want water and sewer. Scotts Corners has no water and sewer, so we don't want to raise taxes. We need some sort of jobs. I'm a manufacturing guy. I'm not crazy about warehouses, but we consume a lot of products here.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Former Mayor Marr.
Thank you. So this question strikes at the very heart of our leadership ability and what we should do going forward. Every now and then you hear this argument, what are you going to do to replace ratables? Well, we can't lead like that. We can't lead out of fear. We can't lead out of what ifs. At the end of the day, we will find a way. And if the public is saying at large, and they are, RPM is a representative of this issue, sure, and many others, but there's a lot of people in this community that I've talked to that feel this way. And as an elected representative, it's not our job to dictate what we think is best for you. It's our job to listen. And if enough people are standing up and shouting, hey, we want to think about something different, we have to figure it out. Nobody up here has the answer to that question because it's going to be difficult to find, if at all. But we need to work at it. We need to listen to the taxpayers, and we need to come up with a solution. And if we can't, guess what? Warehouses are always still going to want to come here. So we need to have a discussion, and we need to listen to the people and really put it to light.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. This brings us to our last question of the evening, and I would like to start with candidate Cockburn. Considering the fact that the building inspector's job has increased because of all the new construction, what are you planning to do to increase the number of inspections of new construction, as well as spotting violations in established buildings as they occur in the township?
Well, for one thing, the building inspector, there should be more than one. They should be more empowered. We need to have local laws and code on the books. There's no property maintenance laws. There's things that are missing that even if he did inspect, it wouldn't make that much of an improvement to properties and their immediate neighbors. When I was in office, we had 2 full-time and 1 part-time building inspector. There's 1 now. And with this amount of projects, you'd need to have at least 3 full-time or have better code in place from the get-go so that they're not going around, chasing their tails on things that we can't even remediate once they find something. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Cockburn. Candidate Feller?
I spoke to the building inspector months ago when he was by himself and asked him what do we have to do to get our backlog of fire inspections completed. And he said, you have to go to a code enforcement, just the first 2 courses. So I was actually thinking about doing it. We do have another building inspector working for the town now, and he's been on board for about, I don't know, eight months, and he's doing a good job. He's cutting into the backlog. There are people out there that we should request for a bid, get a qualified person, set up in an orderly manner where we get back on track, because we can't have commercial buildings that are not inspected. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Brown? What are you planning to do to increase the number of inspections of new construction, as well as spotting violations in established buildings as they occur in the township?
Okay, so I understand that currently we have subbed out all of our commercial building inspections to fire associates with the town. I think that was a great idea moving forward. I think we need to look and put out an RFP to other companies to ensure that we're getting a fair bid price. But we need to ensure that looking at these engineering firms, I'll just say the word, they need to have the staff that's going to be able to cover these inspections, because these big warehouses that are projected and all these other warehouses, they need to be kept their feet to the fire. The SWIPs, the stormwater pollution prevention plans, they need to be inspected to ensure that the runoff does not occur. The fire inspections, I can keep going on and on about all the inspections to ensure that these developments are being good neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Warrington?
Yeah, I believe that recently here, the town board has reevaluated the fees for a lot of the building inspections. And basically, we weren't charging enough to have a staff to do the inspections. So I think we've been moving in a positive direction there. And I think there is sort of a plan in using third-party specialized engineers that are paid for by the escrow accounts of the developers and not being paid for by the homeowners in the town. So I believe we're headed in the right direction, and we just need to be diligent and follow through with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. Candidate Keenan?
Yes, I believe what I would do is continue what the town board has started to do, as others have said, with the fire associates, especially in the area of fire inspections, and they haven't been done for a long time. I don't understand, as Ms. Cockburn brought up, we used to have 2 full-time, 1 part-time. Things I don't understand. Highway Department used to have 14 full-time people, now they have 8. And then they're expected to do more with less and less money. I don't understand that. And then the same thing with the building department. We're expecting them to do things, we gotta back them. We have to support them, and if we have to contract to get it done, then that's what we're gonna do. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. Candidate Hoyt? We can get him a microphone?
Yes, like everybody's already spoken, the town board has moved on that with hiring Mr. Farr and his associates, because he brings associates with him. And I think we are digging into getting the backlog done, and he has the expertise to do a lot of the work. And the beauty of hiring outside help is when things are booming, you pay them, and when things aren't booming, you don't have to pay them.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. We'll now address the question to the supervisors. Former Mayor Marr, what are you planning to do to increase the number of inspections of new construction, as well as spotting violations in established buildings as they occur?
Sean Muir said this earlier, bodies and money, right? And he's right. And in this situation, it's similar to when I was mayor and we had an issue in the water department. And what we did is we saw that we had an obscene number of water loss. It was 51% water loss we had in the village of Walden. And we knew we had old pipes that were leaking, but we also knew that we were guesstimating on big businesses like Hannaford and a lot of the other industry that we had in Walden. We were guesstimating bills. So what we did is we took a leap of faith. We hired a full-timer, knowing and budgeting that he would pay for himself and we would create revenue. And he absolutely did that. And within a year's time, we went from 51% water loss to 30% water loss. That was a huge difference. In terms of the building department, Fees. Our fees are embarrassingly low to the market. We need to raise them. The building department should sustain itself. The more bodies you hire, the more revenue we'll create, the more jobs get done. And that's something that was supposed to be addressed by the town. And I know it's good to move forward, but we addressed that in Walden in the water department in 6 weeks. It shouldn't have been taken months for us to raise the fees up to where they should be.
Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Supervisor Winchell?
Quickly, funding the departments is really my focus. Each department, especially the building department, we were like the one building we talked over by ShopRite. We charged them $8,000, should have been $80,000. So that means the taxpayers are paying for those projects. So that's reality. So what I've been trying to do is basically we up the fees, like Mr. Hoyt said, we upped the fees. We got our hands around it. We realized we weren't funding these, but the taxpayers were funding these projects for the building department and other departments. So like I said, we're trying to reel these departments in so these projects are paying for themselves. The highway, the roadway, everything that's coming in. If you're bringing 250 trucks in a day past the town hall, who's paying for that road repair? No, I don't want to pay for it. You don't want to pay for it.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Mayor Leahy, what are you planning to do to increase the number of inspections of new construction, as well as spotting the violations in established buildings?
Well, let's be honest, we're behind the 8 ball big time with the planning, the zoning, and the comprehensive plan, which is a result of where we're at right now. If anything, hiring a contractor into professionals to come in and do the job is a big added plus. The fees always have to be looked at because when it falls on the backs of the residents, that's a negative, and we want to be able to pay these bills off by having the contractors pay for the bill. I think that it's a big plus that we need to stay on top of these things going forward, and that I think the route of going with the contractor at this time and bringing professionals in to deal with this is a positive.
Thank you very much, Mayor Leahy. This concludes the question portion of this evening, and that leaves us with the last portion where we are going to give each candidate 2 minutes to make some closing comments. And candidate Mears, if we could start with you. And you have 2 minutes.
Work? Here we go. I just want to say thank everybody for coming out tonight, and although I am running unopposed, as your highway superintendent, I will work hard every day to make sure your tax dollars are spent wisely and that the taxpayers don't necessarily have to pay for the roads where there are a lot of trucks coming in. Bracken Road, it's not really built for that. So there's things that need to be addressed, and I will absolutely be on the forefront, especially with the crew I have too. We will work hard every day to make sure that your roads are safe and your roads are plowed in the wintertime and your holes patched in front of your house. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, candidate Mears. We'll now move to the judge candidates. And
I would just like to thank the Walden Community Council for throwing this event for us. And also, my time ran out when we were going over efficiency, and I just want to recognize my co-judge, Raynard Osmond is here, and we are constantly working together on the issue of efficiency, ways and means to accomplish that for our courtroom. And I just want to say in closing that should you allow me to continue to serve you, that I promise you to not let you down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate Gorse. Candidate Mitchell?
Thank you. My passion for justice and for the even-handed application for law and upholding the Constitution is sincere. It's been my life's work. Now, with all due respect to Socrates, I think he was a great guy. I didn't know him personally, but he had a lot of good ideas. But I think he left one thing off his list of good judges and a trait they should have, and that is compassion. I have great compassion. And if you're ticking off the list of things that should be done by a judge to hear courteously, answer wisely, consider soberly, and decide impartially, it must be done with compassion. I think when our forefathers wrote the Constitution, they meant that it should be upheld with compassion, and I have compassion. As I've run for office a few cycles, I always notice in the town of Montgomery that we do have a paucity of diversity in our public positions, and it's not, does not represent the diversity that we have in our community. Well, I would like to be breaking part of that cycle and be the first woman judge in the town of Montgomery. I also would like to point out that I think some diversity on the bench is important. I'm running on row A, that's the Democratic line, also Working Family and Green Party line. I am just so proud to be running and to have been running with all of my One Montgomery candidates, Dennis Leahy for Town Supervisor, Susan Cockburn and Kristen Brown for Town Council. I believe that they represent the future of Montgomery, and I would like to be part of that. I ask for your vote when you go to the polls this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Mitchell. Candidate Keenan?
Thank
Please.
you.
Thank you.
Some things about me I didn't get to mention. My family moved up here in 1964. I went to East Coldham School and all the Valley Central schools and graduated Bicentennial, class 76. I went to SUNY Orange and I graduated there with a associate's degree in business, Nyack College, with an organizational management degree, and I also went to Leadership Orange and graduated in 2005. Most of my experience is in human resources. My military experience dealing with people in the firehouse, even though we're fighting fires, you still have to deal with people. I work for Social Security. I help people with their disability claims, retirement claims. I worked a yellow ribbon program for the military, helped airmen and their families before, during, and after deployment. One of the most painful things I had to do was go back. They called me back as a contractor when they switched to C-17s, nice quieter airplanes, but they lost 200 full-time people, and I had to help with the painful task of the reduction in workforce. Fortunately, with buyouts and things like that, we were able to retire people early, and we found other airmen jobs across the state. Just some other things. I'm not a civil engineer, but I don't need a traffic study to see the traffic problems around here. I'm not an environmental engineer, but I know it's wrong to dump wastewater into the Timbrook. I'm not a farmer, but I know, I just learned recently grades of soil. But when I was a kid, I got to pick vegetables and fruit locally, so I got my hands and feet dirty. So if I'm elected, the only promise I can make y'all is I will do my best to serve you. That's it. That's all I can promise you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate Keenan. Candidate Warrington.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It really shows that there's a lot of people that are concerned with the future of the town. I believe a lot of the issues that we have here on the town, whether it's future development, the ambulance corps, what's lacking in the building department, a lot of these things are basically, I believe, are due to maybe a neglect of just dealing with these issues in a timely manner. Things have kind of been let go a little bit. So not to really be negative, what I really see is that we all love this town, right? But there's so much room for improvement. And so many of these things are problems where there are such diversified different ways we can improve these issues. I mean, the potential, we can make Montgomery a lot greater than what it is right now, if it sounds a little corny. Because the problems that we have, they're solutions. We just need to get to work and, get to the solutions. It just comes down to working through these issues, spending the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Warrington. Candidate Brown.
So I also would like to thank the Walden Community Council for having this, but I would also like to thank you guys, everybody who showed up tonight. And not only that, because we're live streaming, I would like to thank every person that opened the door when I knocked on it. Because I could tell you, it's a little tough to be knocking on doors when you're a little bit younger like I am, and you're really trying to do the right thing, and you hope that somebody nice opens the door. So thank you very much to everybody nice that has opened the door and been a welcoming face for me. But I would also like to say, I find it interesting that comments have shown through all of our discussions here is that really we just want to move the town forward. But in order to move that forward, we need that comprehensive plan, and we need to update the zoning for the future of the town. I am happily married. I have 2 little kids, thank you, Lord, with my husband. My daughter is 4 and my son is 1. My biggest dream is to pass the farm on in better condition than what it is to them. I want them to live here. Just like everybody else, we need residents and we need people here to support our local businesses that are here now. So we need to work towards the future to build on positive attributes and make this town a place where future generations live to aspire. I'm not a career politician. I'll tell everybody that. I tell everybody that when I knock on doors. I'm more of a pissed off farmer that really just wants change in the town. And I look forward to Election Day, and I really hope that you guys will consider voting for me and my team on row A, and also I'm on the SAM line because I'm more of a moderate on political views. But I just hope that we can get a positive change for our town in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Brown. Candidate Feller.
Thank you very much again for listening to us, and I hope it was an educational experience for everybody. It certainly has been for me. I respect all my fellow candidates here, and I think we got 3 very good candidates for supervisor. A few things I missed. I am a charter member of the Knights of Columbus for St. Mary's of Montgomery. I also am a charter member for the Knights of Columbus of St. Mary's of Washingtonville. I was 22 years old back then. I am a member of the VFW right here, 2064, and I am part of their color guard. My family established the first Adopt a Highway in my daughter's memory. We're down on Corbett Road. Well, we've been cleaning up Corbett Road for the last 20 years. And I am currently on the Community Foundation of Orange Fund Distribution Council, where we distribute funds and grants. My father used to tell me, you can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you're not going to please all the people all the time. And I learned that when I was on town council, town board 8 years ago. There was 2 sides to every coin. And I learned after 4 years, after 4 months, sometimes that other side of the coin makes some sense. So I'll go in there with an open mind. I've been there before, and I do have an open mind. And I can work with anybody, I think. I'm a good listener. I'm very good budgeting, believe it or not. I was a budget administrator with Con Edison before I went to electric operations. I enjoy going to the town hall. I will be there. I'm retired. I will be there probably every day, every other day, meeting with all the department heads, finding out what they need, what can we do to help you, and being their representative. If you vote for me, I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate your attendance here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Feller. Candidate Cockburn?
Yes, I believe that elected officials must charge ourselves with facilitating the community to the best of our ability. And as I started with, to be the best, you have to always work on being better. I do that with myself. I'm constantly taking new education, new seminars. I would like to get the community so that we are going to town meetings all the time, not just when the you-know-what hits the fan and Residents Protect Montgomery has to scramble and we have to organize. It would be good if the community was incorporated into all facets of what's good about Montgomery. The parks, culture, history, the volunteer groups. There are so many different things with so many qualified people with specialized interests and capabilities. Bring them in. Make Town Hall a place where you can contribute and you can be kept aware of what is going on in your community and know what you can count on in the future and in the present. I would like to thank everybody for making this happen. I spoke earlier that I think we should do this more often. Community requires dialogue and communication to really come together. And I've met so many people just every time there's a problem, but I've met so many people just in moving here. Let's bring everybody together more often with better projects that we can contribute to without raising taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Cockburn. Candidate Hoyt.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and the Walden Community Council for giving us this opportunity. And I'd just like to say, like I said in my opening statements, I think I've learned a lot in my years here. I think I've learned how to communicate better. And I also agree 100% with Ron that there is always two sides to every coin, and you have to look at it and study it and try to think what's the best for the whole town, the complete town, all 22,000 people. And like Mr. Keenan said, the only promise that I can make is that I will do my research, I will put the time in, and I think anybody that knows me and has watched me in the town in the past can attest to that, that I do that. I have the ability of being a self-employed farmer, that I can make my own schedule to certain respects, so I can make meetings, I can do things, and I really appreciate the opportunity of serving the community, and I would hope that I would have the opportunity in the future to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Hoyt. We'll now hear closing comments from the supervisor candidates. Former Mayor Marr, if you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Keith. First thing I have to do is just say thank you to my wife, Becky, in the back there for putting up with the last year and all the campaigning and missing dinner and hitting doors. And I can't wait to spend some extra time with you and Mia for a short period. Hopefully, if elected, we'll go back to a more regular schedule. But when I was mayor, I loved serving. And I had the benefit of finding out at a very young age what I wanted to do with my life. And at times, because of the way we're conditioned, when we hear about politics and it comes up, often I get hit with a label of a career politician. And it is what it is, it's a word, right? But all the people that I've helped, I believe they see it differently. And I hope that you can look past any labels that are put on me or any candidate and see that I'm a person who just has a passion for people. I love people. I love service, and I love serving my community. And that's why I'm running. Because I have a 5-year-old, I own a home, and I want to make sure 30, 40 years from now, she has opportunities that allow her to afford to stay here. We need to get creative to do that. We all had 1 minute to answer life and death scenario about our EMS, and that's not the Walden Community Council's fault. You guys have done an excellent job this evening, but it merits a lot more conversation, not just here, but I think we've dropped the ball on an issue like that, on the fees, on comp plan, and I think the biggest reason is, I always say, my best ability is my availability. If I'm elected, I have decided to voluntarily give up my full-time job, which I love as executive director of the National Purple Heart Honor Mission, because I think a big problem we face and a lot of reasons why things are falling through the cracks is because we need a supervisor who's gonna make this his full-time job, put in full-time hours, make sure that supervisor's office is open from 9 to 5 every single day. You cannot be quantified how important that is. On November 5th, I'll be on the Republican, Independents, and Libertarian Party lines, and I hope to have your vote. I really can't wait to get started serving our community. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, former Mayor Marr. Supervisor Winchell, would you like to take your 2 minutes?
Sure. We have always adapted to change our whole life here, meaning generations of Winchells, Walkers, my wife. We've always accepted people moving into our area for growth. We saw the Village of Montgomery change into the 70s. We are proud of our Valley Central Schools, which attracts a lot of residents here. I'm proud to have served as your town supervisor for the past 21 months. There's a young legislator in the audience right now. He reminded me of something. He says, you get one, you get the other. My beautiful bride, Heidi, and I decided to run for this office to serve the taxpayers with financial responsibility, reasonable growth, without raising any more taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Winchell. Mayor Leahy, 2 minutes.
Back in 2008, when I first became mayor, I made a promise to the village residents that I was going to get the infrastructure back where it needed to be and get economic development going in the village of Maybrook. I ran into a lot of obstacles along the way, and I learned a lot along the way. I had a great village board. I have great employees in the village that I work with. I have department heads that I speak with every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. One of them's here tonight, Tina, so she could attest to that. We've done a lot in our village, and we've moved it forward. When we talk about full-time, I've been asked if I was going to be a full-time or a part-time. town supervisor, and my answer is 24/7. That's what I do here in the village. My phone goes off, I answer it. I'm there for my employees, and they're there for me because we need to get things done for the citizens of this, our village, and I plan on doing that on a town level. I think it's interesting when I was saying, going back to saying it back in 2008 when I made that promise, that, you know, I wanted to hand the keys off to the next guy and say, just follow the path. I think we have a path, and we're going to follow it in Maybrook. I'd like to do that on a town level. I think I bring the proven leadership and the experience to be able to get that done, and I just hope to get the opportunity from the residents of this town, and I thank you for your time tonight. I thank the Walden Council, and I also thank Keith. Keith, you did a fantastic job tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Leahy. Ladies and gentlemen, the candidates, give them a round of applause. Thank you very, very much. What a great experience tonight. I hope everyone found it as informative, and I feel endeared to all of you tonight after your comments. And it's just so wonderful to get to know you a little bit. And I'm just so grateful at how fortunate we are to have these choices. And again, thank you for all of your comments. And everyone's encouraged to stay and kibitz a little, eh? Okay. Thank you. Oh, yes, don't forget to come out on November 5th and vote. Early voting starts November 26th. I know you'll all be there.
November 26th?
That was October 26th. I got to go home now.